Hey, so you must really be getting a lot out of Host University because I know we're competing with just an absolutely perfect day outside. And I've been to, in fact, should probably let you know, my cousin Mike and I, as I mentioned before, financial advisors. So we've been to dozens and dozens and dozens of these. And what we get out of them is really always talking to the people that are actually in the business, in the trenches, finding out what they do, what they don't do, what's working, what's not working. So that's the entire spirit, if you will, of Host University. So what we have up here are heavy users of white glove workshops. Each one of them brings a little something different to the table. Of course, we've heard from our 4 speakers yesterday. We didn't have a lot of Q&A time at the end, so we saved it for today. So each one of them does something a little bit different than everybody else up here. And like Frank said and Josh said and some others, you really have to make it yourself. And I think that one of the common themes that I really saw, and I'm really getting out of this, is you just have to be yourself. You have to be a human being, lower yourself down, don't try and be a celebrity, anything like that. And certainly all these folks up here know that in spades. So for the people that didn't speak yesterday, I do want to make some introductions. So we have Kelly Boyd. She's been with us at our financial planning firm, Investwise Financial, for how long, Kelly?
10 years.
About, yeah, 10 years. And Kelly's been absolutely killing it for the last few years with these seminars, as has John, who you probably have seen in a lot of the videos. He does a taxes and retirement kind of tutorial. Some of you have already spoken with John, many of you have. And he has a completely different style than Kelly. Kelly does a lot of women in investing seminars and some other one-offs that we try. And James, who is, he's like, well, what do you want me to say up there? And I'm like, dude, you had 19% of the people that raised their hands became your clients last year. That was like the best in the office. How do you do it? And that was what he said. I don't know. So I'm going to learn right along with you guys how James is doing it. But he couldn't be more chill in our office. Very laid back. Usually has his shoes off, his nicotine vapor, and just waiting for the next interview. This guy said, he says, I really got to get up there. And I said, if not, we're gonna dissect you and try and figure out what the heck it is, or you can just show up there and we'll let you tell us. So I also want to mention that InvestWise Financial is kind of everybody's guinea pig or test track. Nothing goes out to what we call the rest of the world, which is all of you, until these guys have tried it. So we've tried 1 night, 2 night, 3 night, 1 hour, 3 hour. We've tried them in all different types of venues. They're testing out right now a 4 pillars seminar, which covers retirement income, Social Security, taxes and retirement, and estate planning. So they bring in an estate planning attorney that pays for the room and some other things. So we're always changing stuff up for all of our advisors. This empty chair, let's see. Brandon, you don't know this yet, but you're going to come up here too. Our newest rep at InvestWise Financial. So just sitting back there, and I remember when he was, come on up. I wasn't kidding. Last time Frank picked him out of the audience, and he called you a fetus. And he works, he just started, when did you start? About a year ago with InvestWise?
They say year to date. Last year was my first Host University. It was my first week of work, so pretty good first week.
Yeah, and he's kind of comes from the school with Kurt, that if he can do it, anybody can do it. So Brandon brought in over $100,000 in GDC in his first 8 months through our seminars. So. And he couldn't even spell IRA when he started. Again, and now he's an Ed Slot Elite Advisor, and along with Mason, we got Brandon and Mason. We call him Brayson. We kind of work hand in hand with everything together, and in the management over at InvestWise. So we're tracking a lot of things, and you might ask, well, what are the numbers? How they work? That gets kind of foggy because we're always testing different handouts, different closing techniques, so on and so forth. But I can tell you, each of these 3 from InvestWise in the last few years have all significantly upgraded their lifestyle and their houses. All three of them have about doubled or so their square footage at their home. Very, very, that's how we're keeping track of numbers a little bit with that. So by square footage of their primary residence. So with that said, we have two runners with microphones. We have Andrea over here, who's been my assistant at InvestWise Financial for the last 23 years. Is it 23? 23 years. She's amazing. She doesn't just keep the trains running on time. She also bonds very much with my clients. Half of them would fire me if it wasn't for Andrea. They have a better relationship with her, a lot of them, than they do with me. And that it's about all being a human, and she couldn't bond any better. Jenna is also going to be running microphones with any questions for question and answer. Jenna helps coordinate the enterprise level sales team at White Glove, along with the marketers and executives of different IMOs and broker dealers. So, with that said, John, he said, don't make me go first. It's funny, another funny thing about John, before I hand him over the microphone. How long have you been with us, John?
17 years.
17 years. So, when he was interviewing, he said, I know you do a lot of seminars. We used to do them the snail mail way back in the day. And he says, whatever you do, I never want to get up and do a seminar, right? I mean, he had that kind of fear, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. My very first seminar that I swear, and this isn't, I was hoping that there was some type of weather event, something. I mean, I was in absolute panic before I got up there in 1990 was my first seminar. And now John has probably done more seminars than anybody else at InvestWise Financial, and certainly more taxes and retirement than anybody in the country. So, and he's a fantastic speaker, and it's been working out great for John. Another quick story about John, and this is, John, we did 80 seminars in the fall of 2016. Just our office did. And we're just testing this new thing, right? This new digital marketing. And John was so overworked, he got sick. He did a morning seminar, and he says, I absolutely cannot do the evening seminar. I am deathly ill. Do you want to give us the details? Probably not what that was. John says, I can't do it. We got to cancel the seminar. Well, he did the presentation for all of you to train you on how to do it. And so we literally sent his assistant down to Dearborn, Michigan. A lot of Ford employees down there, lump sum pensions. Down to, was it Dearborn or Livonia? Southfield. Okay. And apologized that the live speaker wasn't going to be here. Reeled in a projector and just hit play on what you all learned for the training video for the taxes and retirement. But had the assistant there. And do you remember how many people signed up for an appointment with you after that?
60%.
60% wasn't even there. So I don't know what that really, what that really means. The funny thing is, when he is there, he gets like 40%. But anyway, these guys are wealth of knowledge, and I'll get off the microphone here. And can somebody get us started with okay? Andrea, if you could. Oh, you need this.
I need a microphone. No.
So I tell people I set aside the next 2 weeks in my calendar for appointments. Invariably, there's some who just can't do it and they need to put it way off, and then the closing ratio or the percentage of getting those people back in just falls way off the charts. I was wondering if you guys have that problem and how I might deal with it better.
Anybody can take that. Just who wants it?
I'll address it. I will let them know that if it's not the right time, obviously we went summer, whether it's summer's coming up or they're going to be taking a vacation or whatever, and you really want to meet with me, just write on your evaluation form, call me June 1st, and I promise them that my assistant Debbie will call them on June 1st if they allow us to. And that's actually worked out quite nicely. So I think if you're just real upfront. The timing's not right for everybody. We get it. But sounds like you're interested. We will follow up with you. Just let us know when.
And Kelly, while you have the microphone, can you talk about your closing sequence at the end and how many people sign up for appointments, what you use for that?
Yeah, so as Dean mentioned, at InvestWise, we do a ton of different things. We do one-night workshops, we do two-part workshops, we put this in the packet, we take that out of the packet. It's kind of like you don't know what you're going to be doing when you walk in, to some degree. I mean, you're always got to be prepared, right? But so I was trying to figure out to myself, how can I get more appointments set at the seminar, which of course is what Frank has talked about and a couple other folks this time. And so I was kind of like racking my brain thinking, how can I do this? Because we all know that that's their hottest moment when they're at the seminar. And when they leave, of course, they forget, half the stuff you said. So with that being said, some of you may have seen, I guess there's a video of me doing this if you hadn't had a chance to look at it, but it's really a simple concept. And I will say to them, we talked about a lot of information, I get it. I want to make sure that we keep this top of mind and we keep this process moving. And so what I'm going to offer to you this evening, and I'm going to just hold it right here. I'll hold up this laminated 3-page piece, and it's actually called Baby Boomer's Guide to IRA Planning. A lot of things that I talked about this evening are incorporated in here. I know a lot of you had questions about RMDs and how are they calculated and, taxes, the tax brackets. It's all in this little handy-dandy piece. And if you commit to setting an appointment with me tonight, my assistant Debbie is in the back of the room on the way out, and we will give you one of these. Please, this is not a gimmick, and I actually say that. This is not a gimmick. I just want you to keep this process moving and keep it top of mind. And I am not exaggerating. There will be 15 people lined up at the back of the table to take appointments. As a matter of fact, the last 2 I did, I had 2 people there. They were both taking appointments. So this may not be the piece that you want to hand out. Whatever you think is appropriate, whatever your thing is, give them something that's going to hook them in some way to make the appointment that night. And the reason I keep continuing to use it and do it is I've literally had people thank me. They come when they meet me with this in their packet or with their information saying, thank you so much for offering that piece of information. I know that I would have walked out and not set that appointment, and I'm so glad that I'm here tonight. So I keep doing it. It works. It works for me. Try it. I hope it works for you. Oh, yeah, that's really important, too.
I guess I'm saying you have 2 attendees or 2 assistants?
2 assistants.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. And Brandon, another thing, by the way, just on a whim, something that we started doing was charging, just like some of our other speakers. And how old are you, Brandon?
23.
23. Can you tell us a little bit about your closing sequence as well at the seminar, setting up for them coming in, as well as what you charge and how you charge it?
Yeah, so.
That's good.
You hear it? Good, okay. Yeah, so it was definitely a learning curve for me starting out from nothing. We called it, the cannon fodder of seminars when we started at the beginning because we just tried to do as many as we could. So I was trying to find my style and technique. But one of the ways I found was really focusing on the 3 different topics, of course, which was taxes, Social Security, and really sequence of returns, bucket planning. And people really, really like to hear about those things. And so what I ended up doing was, formulating my financial plans to meet with that very well. So at the seminar, I would do the same thing as Kelly, use the handout to book the appointments there. And I really started at a 30% appointment rate, and now I'm up to averaging over 50 at every seminar. So now doing that, I'd bring them back in the office, and I say, I never charge to meet with you. I'm only here to make sure your questions that didn't get answered at the seminar get answered here. But if you want me to continue to do deeper analysis and spend 5 to 6 hours on a plan for you, then I'm going to charge $300. And some of you might laugh, $300 is next to nothing. But as me being 23, I'm like, oh my God, $300, So it was something where I felt, it protected my time, and I'll tell them that. It's like, this is simply to protect my time because I know the value I'm going to bring to the table. So for those who don't charge for plans or have been afraid to, just try it. It's everything that I've done that's been the most uncomfortable has actually been the most successful for me. So.
I was wondering if we could go maybe down the line and have you guys tell us at the first appointment what you feel the most important hook is to getting hired. or anybody.
First, most important hook at the first appointment. Or the most important hook at the first appointment. You know, I'm often doing the Social Security seminars, and I'm tying that decision into their overall retirement income plan and how this can't be looked at separately. I mean, if you're going to look at it separately and you're going to live past 75, you just go ahead, don't come and visit me, you know, take it at 70. So I've already tied in when I'm setting appointments that this is an overall decision that goes with your retirement plan. And I've talked about how the decision on when you take Social Security is affected by all these other factors, like do you have a pension? How's your tax situation look? And I use tax clarity. I put that up there when I'm doing my Social Security seminars. I briefly put tax clarity up there and do an example showing how a couple could take a $50,000 withdrawal from their IRA and have a couple $1,000s in taxes, or they could turn on their Social Security incomes, have $35,000 in Social Security income, withdraw $15,000 from their IRA and have zero taxes. And a lot of people sitting there in the audience aren't aware that they could take withdrawals from their IRA, you know, with zero taxes. So then I boost that up to 22.5 and say it's still zero taxes, so you're going to start your Social Security potentially earlier, and you're going to liberate $7,500 that would have been taxed in the future, get it out of that IRS future debt bucket and free it up now. So, I mean, they're coming into the appointment when they're coming to meet me with the idea that they're going to get an overall plan. So I'm getting all the information from them and setting a second appointment to give them output. So I've already set the stage that this appointment is about me getting information about their goals and objectives and creating a full retirement plan to help them make that decision about when to do Social Security. So, I mean, that's not really, that's a long answer to the question. My answer is that appointment, that first appointment, they know they're going to come and do another appointment after that. And that second appointment is when I'm going to get them on board, you know, using two different sets of retirement planning software, Riskalyze, you know, Tax Clarity, and Social Security Analyzer. So,
and he's bashful. Reason I passed the mic because that was an interesting question. I feel like the hook is when they come to your first appointment, when you got them from the workshop to actually come to your office. And then from that point, for me, it just seems like, you know, you're either going to go through a 2-process, 3-process appointment, and as they see value in what you're doing, and they begin to give you information like how much is your total estate value, and they'll just say, well, $800,000 easily, then I believe that becomes your knowledge that the hook is there. They want to continue with you after that.
I like to simply put it as, especially in the taxes and retirement seminar, as well as the sequence of return and Social Security. I am a specialist in creating my clients tax-efficient retirement income. That's really summarizes all the points together. And it's basically saying if you don't structure your investments in a way with a sequence of return risk and the bucket plan, you're not going to be able to minimize taxes in any way. And that hits home. So just make sure they know what your specialty is.
What I do in my appointment, I wouldn't exactly call it a hook. It's sort of a aha moment. They know they're coming in. I do the taxes and retirement. They know they're coming in for the tax clarity software. So as soon as they come into the office, I don't see them right away. They sit in the reception area, and my assistant gives them a little sheet to fill out, name, address, dog tag information, why are you here? just like if you're in the doctor's office and they wait. And then I bring them into the conference room and they get to see my, I'm a certified financial fiduciary. They see the plaque on the wall, they absorb that, and then I come in. When I come in, I know what they're looking for. But my objective, they know what they're going to get the tax clarity software. I give the tax return to my assistant. She puts it into the software, and then I'm doing a very high-level fact finder. And basically what I'm going to do on the whiteboard is I'm going to calculate what the tax torpedo is. Oh, you've got $500,000 in an IRA. You're 62 years old. Let me show you what the problem is with the RMD, et cetera, at age 70. And during that process, I'm getting information out, and I make it very clear that this ends my first obligation to them during the seminar. If they choose to go forward and they want me to do a plan, there's going to be a charge for that, and we go over that. That's the second engagement. And then the third engagement would be if you want me to implement the prescription that I'm telling you in the plan to correct the problem, that would be the third engagement. Now, while I'm doing all of that, I'm getting some demographic information, and I tell them, not everybody that sits in your chair gets to come into the firm, because we have to connect. So I profile my clients, and some of them make it and some of them don't. So for example, you got to speak English. I got to be able to understand you. If you've got a very thick Portuguese accent, because a lot of Portuguese people where we're at, we can't work together. Or if you're an engineer, I don't work well with engineers because I'm driving the bus, not you. So I give them the tax clarity software, I send them on their way, thank you very much. Or there's a bunch of other things. Did they come prepared for the appointment? They know they're supposed to bring the tax return. Did they bring it? Oh, no, we didn't bring it. Well, maybe you're not so serious. So that's what I do in that first appointment. There's a bunch of stuff that's going on, and it's really to set the next appointment up.
I just want to make sure I understand your question correctly. Are you trying to find out what's the hook to get them to come meet with you? No.
The hook at the first meeting to transfer them to clients.
Okay. First of all, I always sit down and tell them, this meeting's all about them today. We covered a lot of information, and I want to know, where they stand financially, what their snapshot looks like. And I'll usually, after I have my white pad of paper and ask them a series of questions, will then offer a financial plan and explain to them what, that term is used so heavily in our industry. I don't think a lot of clients even know what that means. So I kind of dissect it a little bit. We're going to talk about Social Security and what's the best way for you and or your spouse to maximize. I've got some software that we can use to do that. What's going to be the tax implications when you start distributing money out of this account? Then we're going to touch a little bit on estate planning and just kind of walk them through that whole process. And most people are totally on board. I think it's really important too, if you're not doing this, you as the advisor need to be setting that next meeting with them right in the appointment, because again, that's when they're the hottest. So hopefully that answers your question. Oh, you can.
Hello. So that's the same thing I'm doing is the same thing that Steve's doing. The first meeting is really just fulfilling my obligation that I told them at the seminar. I said, this one here, it's general, it's generic. When you come back to the office, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about your situation. And then at the end of that meeting, and at that point I'll tell them, look, this is the end of our whole seminar agreement or whatever, arrangement, whatever it might be. They're always asking, what are the next steps now? How do we work with you? And then I'll tell them, much like a doctor, based on what you've told me, we have to go a little bit deeper. And here's what we're going to do. We need to kind of get your tax returns. We need to get some more detail on some of these qualified accounts. You told me that you had about $500,000, million, but I got to see the statements because you said it was a joint IRA account, which doesn't make any sense. So we got to bring this stuff in here. And what we'll do is, if they haven't elected Social Security, like I said yesterday, Social Security report, tax clarity report, we'll do some, that tax allocation model. We'll do the RMDs, and then we'll have everything kind of laid out and kind of get the shell set up for the income sources. Where's the money going to come from? When do we think it's going to come from based on the conversation we had? And for that, they engage me. They pay, credit card, check, whatever it might be. We have a seminar package that we put together, which is just basically all those reports that we talked about. And then I tell them at the next meeting, at least I'll know more about this stuff and I can give you them recommendations on it. Because at that point, I don't really, I tell them, I don't know enough about your situation. We're talking about it. And again, that lets me vet them as well. Do I like them? Is it somebody that I think I want to work with? And like I said yesterday, if they don't have any IRAs, you know, I could probably help them, but it's not really my lane right there. So I'm really looking for those larger tax-deferred accounts, somebody who's in that penalty-free zone that we can do some opportunities with, and just having that conversation, that's when we go to the next step. And usually at that point, once we've had that conversation, like Steve said, it's, you know, they just want to know what's the next step, how does this thing work?
So I guess a lot of what I do in my first meeting is a lot of what these guys have already said. Mine starts, as I'm sure it was with most of you, starts in that workshop. I do predominantly taxes and retirement workshops. The reason I do that, and I have no tax background whatsoever. I was very apprehensive when I initially started my taxes and retirement workshops, not having that type of background. But I think it's a very valuable way to differentiate yourself from other advisors in your area. I want to get across the point that I'm doing something different, and I'm talking to people about the disbursement of assets. We all talk about the accumulation of assets. But most of the people that are in my room, as I'm sure it's in your room, are people that are either nearing retirement or in retirement. And when I meet, so I demonstrate in the taxes and retirement workshop the tax clarity software live. Every one of my presentations, I demonstrate it live. If you do a tax clarity presentation, you probably have slides that I created of the of the tax clarity software. That should just be used as a background. I think it's very valuable to demonstrate that software live. That software is a game changer for me in my practice. So when they do come into the meeting, much of my meeting is spent talking about the disbursement and the plan to disperse those assets through the retirement years. And one of the questions that I want to get them to ask me is, do you do this for your clients? And I'll throw it right back at them after I know they have an advisor. Does your advisor not do this for you? And I want them to hear themselves say, no, they don't. And when they say that, they're coming back in for a second session if they're not going to become a client, at the least. So again, it's a lot of it is centered around that software for me and talking about the disbursement of assets.
Yeah, I mean, I basically do what everybody else does here, except like, the tax clarity software really is a game changer. I've been in the industry for 13, 14 years, and being in the industry, I always felt like there was a piece missing, to give the clients a complete financial picture, and to be able to talk to them intelligently about their tax situation and how to effectively distribute assets from their retirement accounts with the least amount of tax penalties as possible. I believe that is really, really powerful. And when I do that, and a light bulb goes on, and they realize that their advisors aren't doing it, and they're like, I should be working with James, all right? But at the same time, to get them to come back, I really don't say a whole lot. I mean, I give them my thoughts. I show them, what I can do for them. I just sit there in silence. The most uncomfortable, what seems like 5 minutes, only like 15, 20 seconds go by. But I sit there in silence until they say, so, what are the next steps? And then I say, well, you guys can come back in. I'll give you my recommendations. If you guys want to work with me further from then on, here are my fees. If you don't want to work with me in that manner, if you just want a plan, we'll create the plan for you, and you'll pay us a set fee amount, every single year that you want to come in and see us. And then I guess I've got a little ace in my pocket is we have a long-term care specialist in our office. So, on our eval forms, they'll check off exactly what they want to talk to us about. And if they don't want a financial plan, if they're not looking for a financial planner, they'll say, oh, I want to talk to somebody about long-term care. And they'll come back in to meet with the long-term care person. And that's another opportunity for me to get in front of them. And I'll say, hey, welcome back. How'd that go? Great. I'm still here if you need me. But yeah, using different venues, I guess, would be a good hook to get people back in.
Thank you. We were pretty happy with the caliber of client we got from the taxes and retirement workshop. I'd be interested to hear from those of you who are doing primarily AUM business or regular business. For those clients that you have coming to your tax and retirement that have more than $1 million, whether it be $1 million, $2 million, how long is that process typically running from you to have your first meeting before they sign on to be a client?
That's a good question, because that's one of the things with the taxes and retirement that I found is the onboarding with a lot of these clients takes a little bit longer. And part of it might be my process, again, because I'm really I focused in really hard on the tax deferred stuff, and then from there, everything else falls out on there. But it's probably taken about 3 months or so. And again, part of what James had said, where there's usually something else there, like long-term care. We might get started with long-term care on something. In the meantime, as we're still getting some other stuff, sometimes with their situation, maybe they're not ready to retire yet. Maybe we're doing an in-service distribution because they're going to get retired within the next year. So we're starting to figure out how that works. If you've ever done in-service distributions, it's really difficult teaching a client to call their administrator and figure this stuff out. And I forgot. What am I supposed to ask again? It's like, but once they finally get it, it's pretty simple. But then that takes a little while with the transfer or stuff like that. So what I try to do is slowly get something over there. And I talk to them about the assets that are critical to the plan that we're working on. And again, their cash account probably is not critical at that point, but if we're really talking about RMDs, we're talking about future planning with Roth conversions, money coming out of tax deferred accounts. Look, these IRAs, these are the critical assets. I know you have other advisors on there. Let them keep this money right now, the non-qualified stuff, but we need to really start getting this stuff here. Because one of the hooks, if you want to call it with the IRA money, I said, look, I can't be responsible for telling you to tell your advisor, tell their custodian to check off the right box when we distribute that money. Because when it gets messed up, you're going to come back to me, and I'm going to be the one that's going to be, you're going to be upset with. So for that, if I don't have the assets, I'm going to charge you quite a bit of money to help you do this process. And to train your advisor is going to be very expensive. It's a lot easier for you to have it with me because I can do all this stuff with my custodian. I know how it works. I have the forms. I check it. You've just removed 3 layers of this process. So that's where my stuff starts. I'm not sure if that helps answer your question or not, but I'm coming mostly from the IRAs, and then from there everything else usually comes, but it's a little bit longer period.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. We try to do the onboarding process as soon as possible. It could be as early as within 30 days, but here's the point. The first piece of asset that comes over, the first sale, I tell them this is like building a house. It's one brick at a time, and we're going to do this piece now, and then another piece. So the entire process could maybe take over a year. I may have to wait for CDs to mature or a piece of property to be sold. So they're on my perk sheet, and so it's all over the board. But the key is to get them over as quick as possible with something, so you get a little bit of ownership.
So mine is, it's basically 3 to 4 appointments. The duration of between appointments, it's usually a couple weeks or so, depending on their schedule, my schedule. But first appointment, data gathering. Second appointment, recommendations. Third appointment, they're typically coming in to answer additional questions or ask additional questions or do paperwork.
As I'm bringing the microphone over, as you all know, I keep saying we're financial advisors too, and Mike and I built our practice with seminars, and Mike and I have really low closing ratios. I mean, we're not really good at selling ourselves, basically. We probably have the worst closing numbers of anybody in this room. I was being kind. Mike has the lowest of anybody in this room. Microphone. But what we implemented for our office, or kind of what I did for myself, and Mason in the back also started a couple months before Brandon, and you know, they'd see somebody with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and this kind of piggybacks on what Steve was saying a little bit, is when you get an elephant, and pretty much, you know, anybody that has more than a couple 100,000 to a brand new advisor, I think it's just this huge elephant client, right? Is we say, try and eat how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So anything they can do, open up a Roth IRA, do a change of broker dealer, just anything to get them as a client. Now you got an excuse to have them come back in a couple months, or 6 month review, or any of that. So just get them as a client. Don't make any money, that's fine. That's the best CRM you could have. Is just that they get that statement with your name on it, even if you made no money, and sooner or later you develop that relationship. So that's worked out really well in our office.
Okay. So as far as the workshops, what are the top 2 or 3 tips you can give that help you find your style?
And growing up, I know it's kind of surprising, right? An Asian guy, you know, playing the violin, you know, and stuff like that. But, you know, growing up, yeah, I played the violin from 5th grade on all the way through high school. You know, was first chair, you know, all 4 years of high school. Got to walk out on stage by myself, you know, thinking I was, you know, hot stuff, you know, stuff like that. You know, it was cool. But yeah, I mean, just kind of going up there, just owning the stage, knowing that, you know more than 99% of the people, or 99% of the information that's, you know, you're presenting. You know, kind of having that self-confidence. And then, you know, everybody has their own style. So I'm kind of goofy, really laid back. As Dean said, I do walk around the office with just my socks most of the days. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you just kind of gotta be yourself and just go with it and feed off the crowd, you know, and just feel them and see what happens, you know. Go ahead.
It's a great question, but I think you continue to evolve your style for 2 reasons. One, things change. Areas that you're working in have different people, but also I get bored doing the same thing over and over and over again. So sometimes I'm trying to make up a way to make me have more fun, so they'll see that.
This question's for Steve. What is the primary takeaway in your taxes and retirement seminar?
So the takeaway in that is that we're trying to avoid the tax time bomb, I call it, for the qualified assets. See, the issue is that all of these baby boomers have followed conventional wisdom, and they have all of their money bundled up in these IRAs. And as we know, that's going to explode. And the audience really doesn't understand that. And once you expose that, they want to go away and say, "Oh, gee, look." Everyone is going to be able to retire, fine. The question is, how optimal is your retirement income going to be? Do you want to pay the minimum tax, or do you want to pay the maximum tax? And I'm from the Northeast, and all the Yankees, they're kind of tight. They don't want to pay anything. So that's the motivation. The takeaway is it's all focused on how much tax are you not going to pay.
Well, we'll get it on tape in case you say something really good about me or Mike.
First of all, thank you for everything. Question is, we heard a lot about weaving stories into our presentations. Does anybody on stage right now have a good story that they weave in and kind of maybe frame where you do it, how you do it, et cetera? Because that's what I struggle with, is trying to weave a story into text.
I've got a story. In my presentation yesterday, I told you that after I do the opening, I start with a personal story. So the one I do, and I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of this. So what I'll do is I tell people I have 4 grandchildren, and my oldest is Eleanor, who lives in Iowa, about 800-900 miles away from me. I don't get to see her that often. And I called my daughter and I said, what would Eleanor want for her birthday? And she said, that'd be easy. She wants the My Little Pony figurine. Now, what the audience doesn't know is before I got into this business, I used to work in the toy business, and I worked for Hasbro Toy in Pawtucket, Rhode Island in the 80s when we invented that damn toy. I know everything there is to know about that toy. So got on Amazon, I ordered it, and I showed the picture of Eleanor on the screen, because all the ladies in the audience go, aw, you know. And then I show the picture of Eleanor with the toy that I had shipped to Iowa from Amazon. And it's supposed to be a 3-inch figurine. The picture that came, the things that were shipped were the 1-inch figurine. So here was the moral of the story, and Frank actually helped me with this, is that even though I thought I knew everything there was about the toy, I mean, I worked in the damn factory, right? Even I screwed it up. So sometimes it takes an expert, and that's how I tie it back to, you need an expert when it comes to figuring out what your retirement income is and your taxes. So it's both a personal story and it ties in.
I have a story that I use. It was actually a client success story that I share when I do my Social Security part of my presentation. And people just really resonate with it. I explained that this woman had come through my my seminar, just like all of you have, and she decided to come and meet with me. And as soon as she walked through my office door, she was just, her head was hanging down, and she looked so sad, like she was literally going to cry. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, are you okay? And she said, I just literally found out on the way here that I lost my job. She was 62 years old and worked for a dental office, and they had to let her go. And of course, she was hoping to transition till she was 65. And long story short, I sat with her and I talked to her, and I was very empathetic. But as I was talking to her, I found out that she had a ex-husband who is now deceased. So I said, are you aware that you're probably eligible to get his Social Security? And she said, no, I had no idea. So I walked her through the Social Security software, and she walked out of my office going to get $2,200 a month that she had no idea of. We literally went from tears of sadness to tears of joy, and she jumped around the office with me, holding my arms. And so I tell people, we do life-changing things for clients and people just like you. So that's a great way to get them to come meet with you. I think for your stories, it has to obviously be something that's really happened, whether it's personal in your life or you had a great client story, and I think Frank touched on that today, but that's been very powerful for me.
My question's in general for anybody that can answer this, but are there certain times of the year that you don't want to do workshops? Because I typically don't do them in the summer, I don't do them in the December, January, you know what I mean? Has that been done from White Glove perspective, or maybe, whoever's been doing it longer, maybe?
I'm going to talk first. I'm so glad you asked that question, because I'm really, I don't know if passionate is the right word, but we were kind of always under the impression that we shouldn't do them certain times of the month, and we found out through some of the allegiances that we use, you got to do them all year long. So do them all year. My busiest time of the year is the summer. And so I do take off July and August, but I don't have to. I mean, people do show up, so there's no time not to do them.
If anybody ever questioned whether women are in charge or not, we all know. Another just quick story. Carl Wolf down here in Naples. Before we met Carl, I was doing seminars down here. My wife and I have a place not too far from here. And I just wanted to work while I was here. I mean, still needed clients, still working, and also just checking out the whole white glove workshops thing and see if it works everywhere and what kind of quality we can get from different places. in any event, I had our team set up a seminar for me at the Bonita YMCA at, it was the day before Christmas Eve. And it was a terrible venue. It was the day before Christmas Eve, and I had 35 people show up. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. So we do them all year round, and I certainly recognize that back in the day, because we used to do the snail mail, you don't want to go and spend $5,000 or $10,000 trying to see if people show up the day before Christmas Eve, or the middle of July, or on January 2nd, or at 11 o'clock in the afternoon, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or any of that kind of stuff, or 7 o'clock in the morning, or on a Saturday or a Sunday, or any of that. But again, I think I've been using this too much. I think but since all the risk is on us, and does everybody know how much you pay for an FTC? So if you want to try it, you want to keep working all year round, absolutely had a lot of success with all this.
Yeah, I've got a question for Kurt. And I know you worked with Frank Pacelli, you mentioned. I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what that was like, how often you worked with him, what he did for you, how it improved your presentation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little blind, so I'm trying to see where the question was coming from.
Well, Frank was fantastic to work with. You saw what kind of speaker he is. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anybody who's more entertaining and at the same time relevant. So I'm sending him a seminar when I've been doing this for 6 months, and I can tell you, I felt humbled to even send it to him. So I was sure he was going to rip me to shreds, but he was actually really kind and helpful, and I have incorporated so much of what he said into my seminars, and I'll tell you that was a big factor for me in dramatically increasing from 2.9 in 2017 to 6.3 in 2018. It was about at the end of 2017 that I had him review the seminar. So I mean, he got on the phone with me, and we just walked through all kinds of suggestions. He told me things not to do, things to add. He even gave me a few jokes to throw in there, because you could see he's really a funny guy. So I mean, we're going to flood him with people sending seminars, but I mean, I think it's one of the most valuable things I did. As I said when I was up here, I mean, if you had Michael Jordan, I was going to say Jackson, if you had Michael Jordan wanting to review your basketball game, man, you'd do it. So definitely take advantage of that. It's a great resource.
Did it start with sending him a videotape of your presentation?
Yes, it did. I just took my iPhone. You can get a $10 stand for your iPhone, and I just turned it on, and then I started my presentation. So it was, there was no fancy equipment needed or anything, and then I uploaded it to Dropbox, and boom. So it was very simple, very, very valuable.
Can some of you who haven't talked about whether or not you charge a planning fee, talk about why you do or why you don't charge for that?
Yeah, I've just started charging fees when I started working with White Glove. And I do it because it puts everything on a level playing field. So when they're in that second appointment, they're not waiting for the second shoe to drop. There's no pressure that they think I'm going to try to sell them something. I've done the work. They've paid me. It ends the second engagement. And then if they want to employ me to implement that plan, then that's a third engagement. But it puts everything on a level playing field. I'm more comfortable with that because I don't want them to keep thinking that, ooh, he's doing all this work and he's going to have to sell me something. Does that answer your question?
What are your panels conversion rate between first appointment and second appointment? Yeah, what is the conversion rate percent-wise?
Someone asked me that with the statistics. I don't know the exact number, but it's generally pretty high. My problem is if they don't come back to that second appointment, I'm not following up on them. And the reason I'm not following up on them is I got all this other low-hanging fruit that I've got to get to. So it's generally pretty high. If we make a connection, we're going to work.
Basically, for me, the first appointment is, gathering the information I need to give them the value add, the second appointment. And so it's plus 90% if you've made the point and told them all the things that they're going to get when they come back for that second appointment. I mean, the only reason they're not going to come back is they really dislike you for some reason. I mean, it's plus 90% that they've pretty much committed. And I am not charging a fee for the plans, and probably it's yet another thing that I need to change as I get more experienced. I mean, some of these guys are doing this for a very long time, and that may be just a personal confidence thing. I'm not charging for that. It's working out okay. I've got about a 30% close on the people who come to second appointments. I know that's not what Frank was talking about, but so there's tons still of upside. I start charging fees, etc., but I'm not charging fees right now. Maybe I need to go that route.
The question again, real quickly, what was her?
Conversion rate between first and second appointments.
So don't see that fall off at all. Another reason too, from my side, and this is, I have a staff, and my admin been with me for 9 years, and then the people that work with her, they handle all of those things. They're really about getting people back in, and you need to come back in. So I don't really hear somebody say, well, we think we're going to, I don't ever hear that. They may say that to them, and then they're good enough to say, well, look, you're making a mistake. You need to come back. And I've actually had people say that I wasn't going to come back, but your girls talked to me, and I'm glad I did. So sometimes we try to get it away from yourself into your staff doing it.
Okay. Any other final question?
How much money do each of you make exactly? Is that a good one? You want to do that? I'm kidding. So thank you, panel. I think that will conclude the panel portion of today. Thank you very much.